All right, hi, I'm Corey from Path of Friendship, and welcome to another Pause and Reflect. And this is Bodie, relaxing after being outside, and finally, a nice day. It's very warm. Got my notes here so I don't forget anything. Today's an important one. Today really gets sort of to one of the hearts of the whole idea of Path of Friendship, what it is. I mean, all the shows will do that, but this is one that I really I think is important. They're all important. Watch them all. So let's start with our moment of connection here, our pause, if you will. And it's important to do this at least once a day, not for our own self, but also for our connection with our dog. And that is getting sort of this sharing a mindful moment with them, or we're just connecting with them without being lost in our heads. You know, so often we love our dogs. We all absolutely love them. And we all strive for that connection and that effortless and natural relationship without having to put all these sort of artificial training and things. I mean, problems happen, but we want them to be able to work them out, and we want to be able to enjoy each other's company and really have that sort of synchronized, connected, attuned relationship. And that's what the Path of Friendship is all about. It's getting that kind of connection with our dogs, so we don't have to resort to artificial manipulation or coercion or any of these kind of things. But today this is really where it begins here. So let's get that connection with them. And so often we're out in our own heads. As human beings, we tend to think all the time. We have this constant chatter, and these narratives in our mind, and we're talking about planning what we're going to do later, or rehashing over and over like a broken record things that have happened earlier. And our dogs don't do that. They are immersed in the present and in their sensory awareness of the present. So that's the show that they're watching. They're watching this present moment. And if we're watching a different show, what happened before, what happened later, how can we connect? We can't. We're going to miss each other. So we want to connect together. And so let's clear our minds for a moment and just immerse ourselves in the way our dogs feel. So feel in yourself how things, sort of get yourself engaged with the sensory awareness of petting and touching your dog. Touch is amazing. I mean, it's not only is it healthy, it releases the oxytocin, which is that neurotransmitter. Was dubbed for a while the love hormone. It really is the bonding and the safety and the security feeling that we have together. And so touch is very important, but not just the touch, but the smells. I don't know, it's our dogs, and sometimes their smells aren't as pleasant. Did you ever notice our own dogs always smell kind of okay to us? That's that familiarity there. But also how they look and how they sound. And again, the touch and how they feel. And as you're doing this, if you're noticing, is it all the same? Is it constant? Or does it change? Well, it does change. It's constantly changing. It's kind of like a shifting, like a kaleidoscope. I know with Bodie, when I'm petting him, depending on the direction I go, it feels different. Depending on the time of day, even the moment, even right now, as I'm petting him, I can feel the different heat that's coming off of him. We're just outside, so parts of him are warm and other parts aren't. I can sort of watch him as he starts to drift off to sleep, a little twitching. I'm catching some of his outdoor dog smell. And if I'm quiet enough, I could even hear maybe a slight whistling of his breathing. But all these things is what we want to focus on. But if we notice them, they're all constantly shifting and moving like a swirling, like these kaleidoscopic, sort of psychedelic swirling things that it's not fixed. It's not a snapshot. Which is why, by the way, it's these ridiculous snapshot evaluations that many animal shelters and rescues give their dogs. They see them for a period of 10 minutes, and right away they slap a label on them. Well, that is, it's so disrespectful and it's so inaccurate. But we love labels. We do. So when we're doing this with our dogs, just forget for a moment those labels there. But it's the labels that I want to talk about. Because we love, look at this. See? Tufts of hair coming off. That's going to be fun to clean up later. No, don't eat that. Don't eat it. We love to label and to categorize and to put things in boxes. That's why they do these evaluations. There's Bodhi. He is fear aggressive, or he is shy, or you fill in the blank. We love to have these boxes that we put our dogs into. Why? Because we're obsessed with control. We love to be in control. And boxes make it real easy. You know, they stack up nice and neatly, boxes, and we can easy to move them around and shift them, and we can throw that label on there. And we also love to be able to say, well, I understand that because he has resource guarding, or he has reactivity, dog reactivity. We love to throw these words and these labels and these things out. It not only makes us feel smart, but again, it's lazy. It's easier to see our dogs with these labels and these boxes that we put them in than to really do this. But when we do that, when we resort to the boxes, we've not done nothing but distance ourselves from them, because we're not seeing them. They are ever-changing, constantly flowing, never the same moment-to-moment kind of dogs. They have tendencies and they have sort of things that can happen, but if we really pay attention to them, we'll notice as many exceptions as there are to the rule. And to put them in does them a disservice. To put them in these boxes does them a disservice. Now, part of it is due to our language. Our thoughts and our ideas are pretty much shaped by our language. If you subscribe to the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis of linguistic relativity or linguistic determinism, which basically says that the language we use, the structure of our language and how we use language shapes our thoughts and therefore shapes our actions. And there's some criticism on that, but there's also an awful lot of support on that theory, and I think it makes a whole lot of sense. We have, our language is basically separated into nouns and verbs, objects and events. And so when we see our dogs as nouns and as objects, well, sure, it's easy to stack them and put these boxes, because we have boxes upon boxes upon boxes. I have dog, I then have Bodhi, and then I have maybe his breed, pit bull, hound, or then maybe I have his evaluation of shy or reactive or whatever, fill in the blank. I mean, there's millions. We box and box and stack and classify, all for the purpose of control. But the more boxes we put our dogs in, the less we are connected to them, because we don't see them. All we see are these boxes there. So these are they get in the way of that relationship that we have. All right. I don't want to miss anything. That's why I'm looking at my notes here, because I think this is an important part. When we experience our dogs, when we see them as an ever-changing, dynamic process, that's when we really can connect to them. That's when, in fact, I'm getting, this is an old classic thing. I'm throwing this away. There we go. We don't need that, because I know this, and I'm going to say it as it is. Our dogs are not fixed objects that we can control. They are a changing, constant process. They are a verb, if you will. And I know Bodhi is more of something that is happening, not something that is fixed, that he is there. So I'm going to get away from the whole idea of putting Bodhi in this classification box of that, because it separates us and separates us. And the very reason we have dogs in the first place, the very reason that we invest our time, our money, our emotions into sharing part of our lives with the dogs, is so we can have this connection. And what's happened is we've pushed that connection away. We've distanced ourselves because of the over-classification and the over-labeling of dogs. So what do we do about it? How can we change it? Well, we have to go back to this state of sort of childlike wonder. You know, here's the nice thing about this. One of the reasons that we have all these classifications is that it was sort of, these are layers that are put upon us. We've been inculcated since early on to classify and to cage up and to put in boxes and to control these things. And it's a very, very useful tool, but this is a case of where the tool has become sort of the master. And it's the old saying, this classification is a great servant, but a poor master. And it's become our master because we rely solely on those labels rather than that. So we have to go back to before we were learned all that stuff, to that sort of childlike wonder, that childlike awe that we have. You know, when we first see things, I always imagine some alien from another galaxy coming here, and they don't have any kind of language. They don't speak a language, and all they do is they're just looking at all these things. And they may not see it the same way as we do, but they're experiencing it. You know, when my kids were little, and those who have had kids, or even seeing puppies, if we stick with dogs, even seeing little puppies, when they first go out in the world, and when they first see things, it's fantastic to see them explore and to just experience new things. And we need to get back to that. And that's known in Zen as Shoshin, or beginner's mind. And as is said in Zen is, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. And the more expert we come, the less and less possibilities we have. In fact, my favorite definition of an expert is someone who knows more and more about less and less until eventually they know everything there is to know about nothing. And that's what happens with us. We tend to box in too much. So we need to get back to that sort of childlike wonder, that beginner's mind, that seeing our dogs for the first time. I play this game with myself every time. Every time I have this moment of connection and I see him, I blank out my mind and I'm not even saying the word dog. I'm just experiencing this, and it's phenomenal because I get to engage with him on a level that's experiential rather than intellectual. Our intellect is a very useful tool, but it gets in the way of connection quite often. And as children, we've had that. We live in the experiential domain. We live in that realm of connectedness. But unfortunately, as we grow and we learn, we end up trading connection for control. And that's what separates us more. We learn things like we're supposed to be the boss. So we learn these sort of hierarchical things. We learn to be anthropocentric, that human beings are more important than anything else. Or speciesism, that one species is greater than another one. And so we learn to classify and judge and evaluate. And all well and good in its place. But when it comes to being friends and connecting with our dogs, all it does is distance us, separate us even more. And so when we're separated, then what do we have to do? We've separated it, and then when problems inevitably arise in the relationship, we go back to controlling. And I don't care whether you're using positive or negative, because whether it's positive or negative, they're basically just two sides of the same manipulative coin. And actually, I think the word two sides of the coin is a great metaphor, because it's like a business, it becomes a business transaction. It becomes transactional. So coin is appropriate in that. That's not what I want with my friends. We don't need to even get into that if we have the right connection from the get-go. And we can get it. It's in us already. It's not something that we have to learn the skill. We've just buried it with that. So when we take in this moment, we need to get rid of these ideas, get rid of the thoughts, even just suspend them for a little while. Doesn't mean you have to walk around with a blank mind and anything, because that's not practical either. But having these moments with our dogs and seeing our dogs as new, as fresh, as this wondrous creatures, as verbs, that makes all the difference. You know, there's a tribe in I think it's in northwest Canada, Now, I think it used to be called the Nootka Tribe, but I know that that's not the correct pronunciation. I can't pronounce the correct pronunciation of this tribe. Nootka is incorrect, but it's close. But it's a tribe where their language consists mainly of verbs. They don't really have nouns as much like what we do. They don't separate things into a thing and a process. Everything is a process. So to them, a dog, it would be dogging with ing. It's the process of being a dog, which really implies constant flux and constant change. Like Heraclitus said, you can never step into the same river twice because the waters are constantly flowing. And as I say, you can never pet the same dog twice because they're constantly different. Bodhi is different now than he was 10 minutes ago. And so am I. And if you speak with physicists, they will back that up because there's a constant flow of energy and a constant rebirth and death of our cells and our atomic structure. And I'm not going to go into the quantum physics because I'm not qualified to discuss that. But that's the truth. So we are this constant change. And if we see our dogs as this constant change, we can really get this sort of connection there. There was a philosopher, scientist, Alfred Korzybski, who you may have heard the quote, "The map is not the territory." And that's so appropriate on this. You know, you look at a map. Now, I do a lot of hiking. My dogs and I, we've hiked everywhere from Grand Canyon to the Continental Divide, not all of it, but some of it, to Wyoming, to Utah, and we go every day locally. I'm fortunate enough to live near many very nice hiking trails, so pretty much every day we're out hiking. And so before I go to a trail, quite often I will take a look at a topo or topography map, kind of see, you know, is this going to be a tough one, really steep hills, or is it going to be, you know, there's swampland, etc. And as much as I can study that map and know that map inside and out, it is nothing compared to actually walking the trail. So when we classify our dogs and we box them in, we put them in cages, it's like looking at that map. And it's not the same as petting them. Kind of like looking at a menu, right? You go to a restaurant, you want to order takeout, and you read the menu. Is that the same thing as tasting it? No. It's the experience. And you can't put a fixity of that onto experience. It's a flow. And that's what that's connecting with our dogs. And that's the first step to getting that relationship. Otherwise, we don't even see who they are. We only see our images of them. Their personalities, their personas. You know where the word persona, personality, comes from? It means mask. In the ancient Greek amphitheaters, the actors wore these masks with megaphonic mouths so they can be heard. They were called persona, like sonar, persona. They're masks. That's where personality, that's where that word comes from. So if we say, well, this is my dog's personality, what you're saying is that's just a mask. It's not really them. So we need to get to know them beyond the words, beneath the words with that. It's like music. It can only be understood and enjoyed if left to flow and travel and to change, right? Who wants to sit and listen to one note? In fact, even one note, if you listen to one note, if you really listen to it, it is not one single note. There's fluctuations in that. You know, I played, for many, many years I played guitar, and I got to pretty technically proficient, but what I never got was tonally proficient. Because there are those who can play one note on a guitar that I could, even though I can play that note, it will never sound the same because there's something about that, the soul beneath it. And so music is best when it flows, not when we try to capture it and fix it. It's like trying to put a river in a box. And it's the same with our dogs. They're best when we see them as this constant flowing thing. So here's something that we can do. Here's a sort of a thing to take away. By the way, Korzybski, if you want to read, it's Of Science and Sanity. You can probably still get it. It's pretty thick, long book, and it's I had a copy, but it got actually destroyed in a fire recently. But it's a good you can pick and choose. You go through that book and pick out things that you like. He goes off on some tangents, but it basically means is that words are not the same thing as the experience. There goes my neighbor's dogs, if you can hear them. So here's an exercise to do. Here's a reflection. Here's sort of the takeaway for today, what I want you to try to do. And I have a lot of my clients do this with their dogs. Print out a photograph of your dog. So here. So let's say I took a photograph here. Let's say this is a photograph of my dog, right? Let's say this is a photograph of Bodhi. And then I'm going to take a pen, maybe a big black thick Sharpie, right? Magic marker. And across that photograph, I'm going to write every classification, every name, every label, every box I've put him in. So if it's Bodhi, I'll write Bodhi. Then I'll write Pit Bull, Hound Mix. Then I could write reactive or shy or playful. It doesn't have to be negatives. It can be good ones. Or smells. I mean, all these different labels and things that we give him. And you have to be honest with it and take your time and realize it. And sometimes some of these labels we have are buried deep in our brains. Get them out. And if you do that exercise correctly, what you're going to notice is all you're going to see are the labels. You're not going to see the dog beneath it. You're not going to experience it. And that's what we do. That's what we do with our dogs. We only see the labels and names we give them and not them. So we need to take the time to wipe that away. You know, it's kind of like the old whiteboards. You just wipe that away to see our dogs again. I know this is not Bodhi, but so try that exercise. It's fascinating. And you have to be honest with it. And you have to think about it. Don't even do it in a day. Sometimes it takes a couple of days for some of those deep labels that we have to sort of bubble to the surface because they influence our actions with them. And it's not fair to them. And all it does is it puts another barrier between us. So, all right, that's good for today. Connect with your dog. Take time. See them. Experience them so you can really be friends. Because without knowing each other truly, how can you truly be friends that way? So we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day. I'm Corey from Path of Friendship.